Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something that honestly sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie. Mind uploading.
Or whole brain emulation, yeah. It's this idea, this theoretical process of scanning and mapping your brain.
And then what? Running it like software.
Essentially, yes. Recreating your mind, your memories, personality, everything in a digital form.
Wow. Okay, so the ultimate goal is like a backup of, well, you. Your thoughts, beliefs, maybe running forever on silicon.
That's the dream for some, yeah. A non-biological existence.
And this isn't just pure fantasy anymore, is it?
Yeah.
It feels like neuroscience, AI, computer science, they're all kind of converging on this.
Precisely. That convergence is why we're having serious conversations about it now, not just writing novels.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts. How on earth would you even start translating our, squishy biological brains into code?
Right. Well, the sources we looked at break it down into a few key stages. First up, scanning. And we're talking incredibly high-resolution scanning.
Like really detailed.
Potentially down to individual synapses, the tiny connections between neurons, maybe even mapping the neurotransmitters, the chemicals involved.
That sounds immense. I'd like trying to map every single grain of sand on a massive beach. Is that a fair comparison?
It's definitely in that ballpark complexity-wise. So once you somehow get all that data...
Which is a huge if
A
already.
huge if, exactly. The next step is mapping the connectome. That's charting out all the pathways, the whole network. Think of it like the ultimate, incredibly detailed wiring diagram of your brain.
Okay, the wiring diagram. Got it.
But then, it's not just a static map. You need functional modeling. You have to figure out how the neurons and the brain systems actually behave, how they fire, interact, change, and then replicate that behavior in software. It's like, imagine not just having a roadmap, but needing to simulate all the traffic minute by minute under all conditions.
So you're not just taking a picture, you're building a living simulation, a dynamic model.
Exactly. A living digital brain, ideally. And the final piece, the emulation part, that's running this whole complex simulation.
Which needs
But
unbelievable computing power.
pretty much unimaginable by today's standards. There was a key report back in 2008 by Sandberg and Bostrom that really laid out this roadmap.
Right, I remember reading about that.
They estimated the storage needed would be in the exabyte.
Exabytes. What even is an exabyte in real terms?
It's huge. An exabyte is 1 billion gigabytes. Their estimate suggested potentially needing more storage than the entire internet held at that time, just for one brain.
Okay, wow. That really puts the scale into perspective.
It does. And they also talked about needing computing speeds vastly beyond what we had then, or even now, really. It highlights the sheer engineering challenge.
So a monumental task.
Yeah.
But are we making any progress? Is the needle moving at all?
Well, yes, actually. That's where things get interesting. There is that 2023 study that managed to map a tiny, tiny piece of human brain tissue.
How tiny?
It's just a 1 millimeter cube. But the detail was incredible nanometer resolution. They mapped something like 57,000 cells and over 150 million synapses in just that speck.
150 million synapses in a millimeter cube.
Yeah. So it shows we are developing the tools to capture that level of detail, even if scaling it up to a whole brain is, well, still a massive leap.
Okay, so let's imagine, maybe way down the line, we overcome these technical hurdles. We can scan, map, emulate. But then comes the really big, kind of scary question, doesn't it? If you run this perfect digital copy of my brain, is it me? Does it actually feel conscious?
Ah, yes. The philosophical minefield, that's the absolute core of the debate, isn't it? You
Yeah.
create this perfect replica.
Yeah.
Does it have the lights on inside? Does it have that subjective first-person experience you're having right now? Or is it just an incredibly sophisticated puppet?
Philosophical zombie, they call it sometimes.
Exactly. Just mimicking thought and behavior, but with no actual awareness. Neuroscientist Christoph Koch, for instance, has argued consciousness comes from integrated information, the processing itself, not just the structure.
So just having the blueprint, the wiring diagram might not be enough. You need the actual car running, experiencing the drive, not just the plans for the engine.
That's a good way to put it. The structure might be necessary, but maybe not sufficient for subjective experience.
So even if this digital me acted exactly like me, remembered my childhood dog, everything, it might just be empty inside.
Yeah.
A very convincing automaton.
That's one of the profound possibilities, or perhaps risks. And it opens up a whole Pandora's box of other questions,
Like what?
Well, what about identity if you can make multiple copies? Which one is the real you? Could you merge them? And who owns your digital self? Your estate? A corporation?
Oh, God, yeah, ownership. And the risks. Deletion. Hacking. Imagine someone altering your digital memories.
Or just turning you off. The ethical landscape is incredibly complex and, frankly, pretty daunting.
Definitely gives you pause. Which makes you wonder, why are people so intensely interested in this? What's the big draw towards digital immortality?
I think fundamentally it taps into very deep human desires. The most obvious one is escaping biological limits, especially death.
Right. The age-old dream of living forever.
Exactly. And the idea you could continue existing, maybe exploring vast digital worlds like the metaverse concepts people talk about, living indefinitely in silicon.
Beyond just survival, though.
Oh, yeah. Think about continuing to contribute. Imagine scientists, artists, thinkers being able to continue their work, their passions, indefinitely, staying connected to family across generations, perhaps.
Preserving knowledge and skills.
And on a grander scale, maybe preserving human consciousness itself, protecting it from, existential risks to our physical world, archiving humanity in a sense.
It's a powerful set of motivations. The sources mention some specific initiatives like Connectome and the Brain Preservation Foundation. What are they actually doing?
Right, so they're focused more on the preservation part right now, developing ways to preserve brain tissue, chemically fixating it or vitrifying it.
Like freezing it.
Sort of, but in a way that aims to keep the ultrafine structure, the connectome, perfectly intact for the long term.
Okay.
The hope is that future technology, maybe decades or centuries from now, could then scan these preserved brains and perform the upload. They're essentially trying to create the archive now, betting on future tech.
Hedging their bets on the future scanning tech makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you've got predictions. Ray Kurzweil thinks this could be feasible by when?
He's known for some bold predictions, and the sources note he suggested mind uploading could potentially be possible around 2045.
2045, that feels surprisingly soon for something this radical.
Well, he links it to his predictions about AI reaching superintelligence and the idea that very high-resolution brain mapping might become routine around that time. Whether that timeline holds, we'll see. Still, it brings it out of pure fantasy and into the realm of, well, conceivable future tech. Which leads us back to the big personal question. Thinking about all this, would you do it? If you had the chance to upload your mind, potentially achieve digital immortality, would you take it?
That is the question, isn't it? It's incredibly difficult. Part of me is fascinated, the idea of continued existence, learning, experiencing. It's undeniably appealing.
Yeah.
But all those uncertainties we just talked about, is it really me? What about the copies? The ethical risks? That profound unknown about consciousness? It gives me serious hesitation. It's a huge gamble.
It really is. And that's the question we want to leave with everyone listening today. Would you make that leap? Would you upload your consciousness?
And what would that mean to you? Would that digital entity carrying your memories and personality be genuinely you? Or just a fantastically complex echo?
Yeah. And if your physical body is gone, but this digital mind persists, are you still alive? What does alive even mean then? These aren't easy questions. They cut right to the core of what it means to be human, what identity is, what consciousness is.
Absolutely. This deep dive into mind uploading, it's clear that technology might be racing ahead, but the philosophical and ethical thinking needs to keep pace. It's something that will keep evolving, for sure.
Definitely something to keep pondering long after this discussion. The implications are just immense.